So I would like to apologize for making another video about AndyPants so soon, but it has been brought to my attention by fans of the channel that his Discord server is an absolute den of filth. I know that should be a pretty obvious statement, but the sheer quantity and scale of degeneracy in that place left me completely shocked. So quick intro on AndyPants. He is a quote-unquote anti-woke gaming YouTuber, and he's basically every flavor of ist and phobic there is out there. He made a game called Chad vs. the Gay Nazis, which featured AI-generated CSAM, and he got destroyed in a debate by the Act Man one time. That's really all you need to know. I've made a few videos about him so far. This will hopefully be the last one. But if you guys know of any other drama that you want me to talk about, you can either leave a comment or send me a DM on Discord. My username should be on screen right now. With that out of the way, like, subscribe, follow my Twitter, my Blue Sky, join my membership, whatever. Let's get into the video.
I'm a chud, I'm a chud, I'm a fat little chud, playing League all day until the sun comes up.
So like a lot of YouTubers, myself included by the way, link in description, Andy has a Discord server. Now on the surface, there's nothing wrong with that. That is a great thing. It offers YouTubers a good way to connect and communicate with their fans without trudging through the Pandora-esque wasteland known as the comments section. The problem, however, is that AndyPants uses it for evil. And at this point, I should warn you, there's gonna be a lot of slurs in this video. I'm only gonna say the ones that I'm, allowed to, that apply to me, and even then, they'll be censored, but you have been warned. So, when the person who shared these screenshots to me joined the server, Andy immediately went into their application and called them a twice, by the way. He then continued by saying, "How many have you blanked today?" Now, I can't say that on YouTube, nor do I really want to say it, period, so I'm gonna throw the screenshot on screen so you can understand what I'm talking about, but also, a quick aside, I want to point out how dumb it is to be using fag as an insult in this day and age. Personally, the queer people I know, including myself, use the word pretty frequently, and none of us really take offense to it. That's not to say that it's not offensive. Obviously it is. It's just that most of us don't really care. Like, why would I be offended that you called me I am one. But yeah, based on the screenshots that this anonymous individual sent me, it appears to be one of Andy's favorite words. That is, however, followed by some less than pleasant ones. The R slur, for example, which, while no doubt insanely offensive, is disturbingly commonplace these days. Additionally, Andy seems to be a pretty frequent user of the hard R. Both of them are used, ironically, very liberally on Andy's server. Now listen, I live in the rural South. You get used to hearing slurs from people who never grew out of their edgy middle school racism is funny phase that almost every white kid inevitably had. But despite that, I've never seen such a high slur per message, or SPM, anywhere other than Andy's server. And I'm sure that I seem really dramatic right now. I probably sound like Obi-Wan describing Mos Eisley right now, like a wretched hive of scum and villainy. But honestly, the comparison is accurate. Andy's community is the Mos Eisley of the internet, a den of degeneracy where the outcasts of society convene to engage in tomfoolery and heresy. And everything I've talked about so far has just been the words that Andy and his community are using. What about the sentences that they're constructing with them? Assuming they're legible, they're even worse. AndyPants fans have the reading comprehension of Jujutsu Kaisen fans, only even more evil. Back in my day, we used to blank for fun. Mud-colored people should stop breeding. Indians invaded. It is stinky now. Guys, these sentences are actually dropping my IQ points. I am dumber than I was before I started reading these messages. And something else I want to point out is the sheer hypocrisy. Obviously, that's not the bad part of this. I shouldn't have to explain what the bad part of this is, but it also just annoys me. Andy's fans often describe these communities in insulting ways, referring to them as unattractive or poor-smelling, and then they threaten essay against them. And that actually brings me to my biggest issue with Andy's community, I mean, aside from all the other ones, and that's the trivializing and comedification of essay. I already showed you a quote from Andy earlier, but there is additionally an AI-generated meme depicting Peter Scully. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of who Scully is, he is a vile monster who created a video so notorious and so awful that I don't even really want to risk naming it on YouTube, because I feel like that alone would put my channel into some kind of trouble. So what this community really doesn't understand is that for an edgy joke to work, there has to be a punchline. The part that makes you laugh while thinking, can they say that? Instead, this image is just the latter half. It's not dark humor, it's not even humor at all. And I suppose to their credit, they aren't exactly Scully supporters, but I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way. I think that jokes and humor regarding, for example, the Epstein files, which I know I've joked about before on my channel, works because, while it's no doubt in bad taste, it does something important right now. It spreads awareness, it creates attention, and it makes it prominent in people's memories. However, in the case of Scully, his case has been settled, he's locked up for life, and we can forget about him. There's also rampant anti-Semitism here, but that's really to be expected, sadly. Plenty of Nazi imagery, I shouldn't have to explain why that's bad. Unfortunately, if there are this many brain-dead morons who don't get it, somebody's gonna have to. These absolute buffoons don't seem to realize that they'd get sent to the camps too. They would not vibe with you, my guy. So that's a summary of Andy's community, but what about the man that these wicked individuals rally around? Well, I have a theory about this guy.
I'm a chud, I'm a chud, I'm a bad little chud. Why would I get a job when I can live with my mom?
Who killed masculinity in gaming? When did games become so soft? What is the crisis of masculinity? These are just a few titles of AndyPants videos. So what do you notice? Andy is obsessed with big, strong, masculine, muscly, oily men. Okay, I added the oily in myself, but I wouldn't be surprised. This leads me to a theory that I've been cooking up. A game theory, if you will. So the reason that Andy is so obsessed with masculinity, especially in games, is because he's gay. This is actually a pretty common trend. I don't know if you saw my video about Synthetic Man, another anti-woke slop tuber like Andy, but he got exposed for consuming that sort of content while using tools. I can't go more into detail on that because this is YouTube, but again, it's a very common trend. Trans is frequently one of the most viewed content categories in red states. Notice content in quotes. Even people like Alex Jones have been caught with that sort of material on their phones. And a big reason for that is internal self-hatred and repression. A lot of people struggling with their identity in this way will put on an exaggerated, hateful performance and then indulge in their secrets in private. My theory is that Andy is one of these people. Now, I should clarify that that's not the only reason people might be prejudiced in this way. They might also just be stupid, which is a very likely possibility for Andy. Whatever the case, this is just a little idea that popped into my mind. And to cap off this section, I want to tell you all about a historic example of this exact phenomena. In 2007, Larry Craig, a Republican senator from Idaho, was arrested in the men's restroom of the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. The alleged reason? He was attempting to solicit intimate acts from men. As you can imagine, being a Republican in 2007, his views on the issue weren't exactly progressive. Immediately after the scandal broke, several men came out accusing Craig of either attempting to or successfully engaging in such acts with them. Craig, despite initially pleading guilty, denied these claims as well as the charges that he was currently convicted for. As far as I know, he is yet to come out, so one has to wonder if he'll live his entire life in denial in the same vein as AndyPants. Now, with that story that I added solely to pad the runtime out of the way, let's get into the next section of this video.
I'm a chud, I'm a chud, I'm a bad little chud. I got nothing to do, so I go to Fuda.
So Andy doesn't just talk about games, he actually makes them too. That is, if you can call this abysmal slop a game. This is Chad versus the Gay Nazis, a game in which Chad, Andy's self-insert, goes on a rampage slaughtering people who have taken over this game's world. Now these people are obviously meant to be queer, this is Andy's queer murder fantasy, and the reason that he gives in-game is that all of these people are preds, so it's okay. Now that's obviously playing into a very specific, very dangerous stereotype, but that's really not even the worst part of this game. This game is dedicated to Andy's daughter, and it features questionable AI-generated depictions of underage characters. That's right, not only are all of the assets and probably a lot of the code in this game totally AI-generated, but it's being used to make illegal stuff. As a matter of fact, the contents of this game were so controversial and so questionable that it was rumored Andy's wife left and took the kids. Unfortunately, it was not, but it was very believable. Although I do imagine Andy's kids are probably going to grow up to be like X.
Do you have any relationship with your father?
What's that? What's a father?
That's actually where my script ended, so from here I'm just going to wing it. Which is okay, I've talked about this enough times to where I'm pretty much an expert on the topic. So when Andy released the game, fellow YouTuber Dead Domain made a video playing through it in which she found some very disturbing images. AI-generated CSAM. That is insane, especially when the main message of the game is that queer individuals are preds. Meanwhile, this is the content that Andy is actively creating and depicting. And this isn't exactly something that Andy's trying to hide or that he's ashamed of. When he was called out for it on Twitter, he responded, "Yes, because people like you are doing this stuff." Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You, Andy, you are literally the person who is doing this stuff. You put in the prompt, you got the image that resulted from that, you were the one creating and producing the content. And then you've got the gall to point the blame elsewhere. Like, what are you talking about? I apologize for the sudden change in microphone quality. I have no idea if this sounds better or worse. I'm just trying to test out a new configuration to see if I can get my voice to sound any cleaner or clearer through this microphone. Anyways, as I was saying, Andy is out here creating content that he then calls immoral and then blames others for the existence of said content. And this is actually something that his fan base, or at least audience with the same mindset as him, seems to do. I recall I recently got a comment on my original AndyPants video that said, "He made a game with everything I've seen in the media." Which is like the most insane confession I've ever heard. I consume a lot of media, and never once in my consumption have I seen CSAM. I don't know who originated this quote, but it still rings true today. Every accusation is a confession. And right now, I'm just critiquing the contents of this game and this story from a moral standpoint, but let's judge it based on its status as art. This is, after all, a story, a fictional story, and thus we should not be judging it from moral standards, but rather on its quality. Does it hold up as a piece of media? Of course it doesn't. The story is awful. The story uses no subtlety, there's no nuance, quite frankly, there's no intelligence in the story. Listen, expressing oneself and one's belief is the purpose of art. And so, because of that, one can argue that there is neither a correct nor incorrect way to consume or to create art. However, this is the wrong way to create art. This is not how you're supposed to do it. Like I said before, there's a massive lack of subtlety and nuance in this story. Andy depicts everything as the correct truth and the objective truth as to how the world is. The real world, not the fictional in-game world. And you know, I've always thought that the best pieces of media are ones that make you look at the world around you and think. I think that shows like Neon Genesis Evangelion, for example, do a fantastic job of that with the deep dive into themes of loneliness, themes of sadness. I think that it's truly brilliant art. And even to me, satire like South Park, for example, does a really good job of doing that, looking at the world and its problems and just thinking about them and acknowledging them. It's something that Andy, I think, here tries to do, but really fails to do it on virtually every level. And I think nowhere is that more apparent than in my favorite character in this game, who is, of course, gay, furry, pedo, Nazi. Yes, that is their full name, and you will address them as such. And I'm not gonna lie, he, they, whatever, kinda bad. Kind of bad. 10 out of 10, would crack, next section. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about in this video. As I said at the start, like, subscribe, join my Discord server, membership, follow my Twitter, my Blue Sky. That's really annoying, isn't it? All that advertising stuff. I'm sure you guys are sick of that, so I'll just go ahead and conclude with a special thanks to my one and only channel member, Koi or Abikura. Everyone who watches these videos is really appreciated, but especially you for giving me money, honestly. I do seriously appreciate the support, though. That's about it. Peace.